Michael Manfield KC, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Good to have you on. I wanted to talk to you about two things. There's one Labour MP who deserves huge credit. His name is Karl Tuner, part of the new... Sorry?
He voted against the abolition of juries for all sorts of trials.
Yeah, Lammy stood up and said, I want to scrap jury reforms, which to me is a complete disgrace. So Karl Tuner, the only one to show his true colours, has actually resigned the whip and fears that it'll be thrown out because he says this is an absolute dereliction of what is important. This country has been built on a legal system where you are, you know, tried by your peers, not a judge who could in some instances be biased or have a politically weighted opinion. Fair play to Karl. What Lammy is doing is a disgraceful attack on our legal system, isn't it, Michael?
Well, I think, yes. I don't want to exaggerate it, but I've been at the job for now nigh on 55 years. So I've had, I think, a lot of experience, more than most. And the heart of the experience I've had has always been treasuring, nurturing the fundamental principle, democratic principle, that is, you are tried by your peers, absolutely. And it obviously historic, goes back hundreds of years. And it is the point that tends to get lost in all of this, is that it's the one bulwark, if you like, against arbitrary government. Juries have consciences, and juries are members of the public, chosen randomly. Perhaps, if you look at our system, they're the most democratic form you can get, where you get 12 people in off the street, basically, and they decide on important issues. Some of them are political issues, and it's interesting that that's where governments, one after another, want to get rid of juries because actually they come up with verdicts that governments don't like. So I'm strongly against this, and I laud the activities of that singular Labour MP, but I gather there are more in the wings now who are going to come out who've already declared against this.
It does seem to be, as is, and I'm not asking you to get political, but it does seem to be yet another balmy answer to an increasing problems. You know, stacked courts. I don't know. Create more judges, build more courtrooms. I don't know. I mean, it's the same ideology that says that if you get put, I mean, I'm old-fashioned, probably older-fashioned than you. You know, you get 5 years, you should serve 5 years. This rubbish that you should be out halfway through and they want to lower that even more, what, to be released to commit even more crimes. We've gone as soft as anything. But to say, you know, oh, let's cut out juries, let's just get it done. When you see some of the decisions, Michael, that judges are making, it doesn't instill confidence in the British public in any which way.
Well, that is a very good point about instilling confidence, because I think the phrase that's used frequently, judges use it about themselves, namely, they become case hardened. And therefore, if you've got one person deciding, which is what this scheme is about, is one person dealing with trials and making decisions, it is inevitable that because you've been doing it day after day after day, you become almost mechanical at the way you do it. But can I just make one other point, which is linked to the principal point? We need it as a principal bulwark, a sort of pillar of the democratic society we should have. Secondly, where does all the evidence come from? There isn't a shred, not a shred. And if you get anybody on this program, ask them this question. Tell us what the evidence is, the research is, that shows the backlog is due to jury trial. It's nonsense. 2% of crime, anyway, is dealt with this way. Of the 80,000, I don't know how many are necessarily jury trials, but the real problem is that even if you have a judge alone, it's not going to make a fantastic amount of difference. And the point is, it isn't about that at all, because the Justice Minister was asked the other day, Sackman, what would you do even if there wasn't a backlog? They still want to get rid of juries. Yeah. Anyway, it's a principle.
I think it's another example of Labour's ideology. I agree with you. I don't think it's an answer to an issue. Can I put that to you? What do you believe would be the correct legal way to deal with what is undoubtedly a backlog of cases, Michael? What would your advice be?
Actually, you've put your finger on it yourself a little earlier. Namely, we have a system that's broken because successive governments, not just Labour politicians, the Tories are at it as well. So over the last 50 years, there's been de-investment in the system.
Yeah.
We've got courts standing empty. 20% of the main court centres are empty. They're not working to capacity. Judge sitting times have been restricted. In Europe and certainly other jurisdictions, what they do is they split the day so that you have more than one case in the same court building in one 24-hour period. That's what they do. So that's what's not happened here. So with courts empty, judges not sitting to capacity, it could make a big difference if they just got on and used what they got and improved what they've got.
I'm so glad you're on, because there's a story that's come out today. It doesn't matter that you might not have heard about it, because you'll deal with it as you would do. There's a gentleman called Abu Zubaydah, who is a man who was basically detained and still is in Guantanamo Bay. The CIA, Guantanamo Bay, nobody agrees, but the CIA, in prosecuting him 25 years ago, took via email some advice that they asked for from MI5 and MI6. Today it's come out, Michael, that the UK has settled out of court by paying a substantial sum, which means in its millions, for being, what was this? Helen Duffy's international counsel said this settlement provides a measure of redress and implicit recognition of our clients' intolerable suffering at the hands of the CIA, enabled by the UK. But the point I wanted to make to you, Michael, was she goes on to say, this case is deeply relevant today as states ride roughshod over international law and the world looks to other states to respond. There are critical lessons about the cost of cooperating with the US or other allies, flouting international norms. Why are we paying millions to a man who's never set foot in this country, Michael Manfield?
Well, I think the principles behind this, which you've just read out, obviously I don't know this particular case, but my concern alongside this attack on the jury system is the dereliction is about the rule of law. We're living in a global situation in which if you've got enough guns, you've got enough bombs, you've got enough gunboats, all the rest of it, you rule the waves. The idea of principles gone out the window, and that's my concern. Here was a situation, Guantanamo Bay was grotesque. I'm not going to go through all the details of that. And at the time, the British government were denying any involvement in all of it. And that's why this is so important. Just like they denied any involvement in Venezuela recently. But it's now turning out that they actually have assisted with the stopping of boats and so on. So actually, I think there's a duplicity in government that's been there for 30, 40, 50 years. And you end up in situations like this where ordinary individuals are having to be compensated for...
But he's not, with respect, and I would never disagree with you in a court or I'd be too scared. I'm asking you to assume from... just Britons getting up this morning and working here that a man who's never set foot in this country, who's imprisoned for terror charges, is being paid... I'm not talking about the legal process, or I'm talking about is being paid millions of pounds.
Yes, and I think, I'm sorry to say, I'm not sorry to say at all. I mean, I do disagree with you. The fact is, if we have participated in an illegality which has kept somebody locked up in isolation, I don't know whether this guy is guilty or not. There were lots of people just detained in Guantanamo Bay year after year after year, and then they were dealt with by kangaroo courts. So the system that pertains to Guantanamo is a long way from the jury system, so that's my point.
If I ever get into trouble, can I call you?
Yeah, I'll be around.
Good man. Michael Manfield KC, legend. Thank you for being on 50 years. Just bear in mind that man, right? I was reading this. Represented the victims of families of the Lockerbie bombings. Represented Commander Limaj, accused of war crimes in Kosovo. Represented Michael Barrymore at the inquest of Stuart Lubbock. Represented the Bloody Sunday victims' families. He is probably one of the best KCs that this country has ever had. And interesting to get his opinion on that stuff.